So today I'm going to be talking to you about one of the most anti-Semitic propaganda movies of all time, Süss. It's a Nazi propaganda movie from 1940, which was even banned. It was so anti-Semitic, it was even banned in Germany after 1945. And even nowadays, you can't even watch it wherever you want to. You have to have special permission. I have to have an actual reason as to why you want to watch this movie. Well, it's one of the most notorious movies of all time, and one of the most anti-Semitic movies of all time. I've seen the movie ratings. They gave it a 27% in Rotten Tomatoes. Because it's not outright anti-Semitic, but it's purely anti-Semitic. I'm gonna explain about the plot in a second. So a bit of background. Well, this was essentially the brainchild of Nazi minister of public enlightenment and propaganda, Joseph Goebbels. He saw this British movie called Süss in 1934. Well, it was released in 1934. Well, this movie did not sit right with Goebbels. It was a pro-Semitic movie starring a German actor, and that in turn was adapted from a 1925 anti-Nazi novel, so purely anti-Nazi novel, from a German Jew. So Goebbels saw this movie and said, hey, first of all, even let alone the plot of the movie, which I'm gonna get into it in a second, I don't like the fact that it's a pro-Semitic movie by the British, by a German actor, based on a 1925 book that's anti-Nazi by a German Jew. He did not like that. What also didn't sit well with Goebbels was the plot. Well, it's about Joseph Süss Oppenheimer. He was a court Jew from the 18th century. The British version, was essentially a plea on behalf of the Jews being prosecuted. It was released in the movie British one was released in 1934. So by this point, it wasn't an outright prosecution. It was more exclusion from society. It was just before the Nuremberg laws were passed. So, the Jews knew they were being excluded from society, and it was a kind of a plea. And obviously, it was successful because it got to Goebbels. Goebbels saw it, so it must have reached quite significant popularity. Well, it was extremely successful in Britain and in the US. But in Vienna, it was banned because, they didn't like the fact that it was really pro-Semitic. Well, the origin. So Goebbels really liked to stress the Nazi stereotypes about the Jews in this movie, as well as in other anti-Semitic movies like Der Jude, also published in 1940. Well, they are portrayed as untrustworthy, hook-nosed, and really crafty. In the original 1934 movie, Oppenheimer, he's this really guy who he becomes rich, and ends up abandoning and turning against his protector because the Duke tries to rape his daughter. Now, in Goebbels' version, he can't have that. He can't have the Jew being this someone who has in humanity, someone who is doing things for the good. How someone who becomes rich, yes, because he does become rich in the movie, but not because of the good reasons as in the original movie, because of purely greed and Nazi stereotypes on Jews. Anyway, it's a whole stereotype fiesta, I think. And it's just stereotype after stereotype, and Süss's actions even almost cause a civil war, and he even rapes a German girl, tortures her father and her fiance, and then is caught and he undergoes trial and is eventually hanged. So, if you want to look at the message behind the movie, it's Goebbels saying, well, look, guys, this is the Jew. This is an example of a Jew. All Jews are like this. So, as you can see, he will get rich, he will betray you, rape someone you know, and torture your family. But he will eventually be brought to justice. And who will bring him to justice? Us, the Nazis. I mean, by 1940, when the movie was posted, they were in the middle of war. I forget in what month, but around the time Operation Barbarossa was being executed. I mean, that were about the beginning of the outright extermination of the Jews. Then also Der Jude, that was published in November of that year. So, and okay, that one last part in terms of propaganda. Well, Goebbels, he had this approach to movies that he could play on the subconscious. He didn't think that you needed outright political messages because that could sometimes turn people off. He knew that he could put subliminal messages. People would catch on to those, but subconsciously. So little by little, movie by movie, he could implant on people's brains the idea that Jews are bad. If he just suddenly said, "Oh my God, Jews are bad," well, that's going to be more polarizing. It's going to spark more controversy. Of course, this is Nazi Germany. There's no freedom of expression, but still. And that's why he used this subtle anti-Semitism in Süss. Hitler, however, he preferred a more brutal, open anti-Semitism. He even stated what he wanted to do with the Jews in Mein Kampf. The guy, he wasn't hiding his anti-Semitic policies. So he really liked movies which would create outright anti-Semitism, like The Eternal Jew or Der Jude. I mentioned it a couple of times. And yeah, that is essentially Süss. Well, Goebbels, in terms of propaganda, that's why I like Goebbels so much, because he was this propaganda evil genius who could turn a concept and put it into little subliminal messages and spread it around the population. But he didn't do it in a way which would saturate German cinema so much, because then people would just stop going. That's what happened with the newspapers. The Nazis owned so many newspapers, and well, that eventually turned people off because they were like, "I'm gonna read the same thing every single day in every newspaper. I'm just gonna stop buying it." So Goebbels managed to suddenly implant in people's brains the idea that anti-Semitism was the way to go. You should exclude Jews from society and even kill them, because otherwise they're gonna kill you. And yeah, it was evil, but it's pure genius. And this shows how Goebbels was a master of German propaganda. And I strongly argue that Nazis could never have gone to where they were and couldn't have kept on with the war going as long, personally, without Goebbels. Because even though when the war started, Goebbels did lose prominence in German society, well, he needed to keep morale up. And he did so. The Germans, they kept on fighting right until the end. In the streets of Berlin at the end of April 1945, there were still people fighting. Most have left, but some stayed. And German cinema was extremely popular up until the end. And that is mainly through Goebbels, because he knew he couldn't just, especially during the war, put outright political messages, outright anti-Semitism. He needed to include comedy, a hero, not action movie, because those weren't as prominent as in today's society, but a hero movie, someone who was strong, someone who would save them, someone who represented Germany, and that's exactly what Goebbels did. And well, at the same time, in Oppenheimer in the movie, he gets caught, he's put to trial, and is eventually executed. And that does represent the German, it's obviously based in the 18th century, which does two things for Nazi propaganda, because Nazis loved historical movies and movies based on different historical periods to glorify the past, but also just shows how the government, how justice would take care of the Jews, and how if the Germans let them, the Nazis would just solve the world's problem by eliminating the Jews, and that's a simple solution. And yeah, that's essentially Süss and Nazi propaganda under Goebbels, movies. The guy was an evil genius. I'm just gonna leave it at that because, yeah. That is pretty much everything I have to say. I hope you liked it, and thank you for watching.